Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. I hope you've all had an amazing Easter and enjoyed some really cool downtime with your family and friends and all those amazing. It's so crazy. In the town I live, it's a coastal town. Since I've been here, and that has been since 2009, every Easter we have the crappiest weather. It's like the day before the long weekend begins, sun shining and everything is amazing. The day after it ends, sun shining, everything amazing again, but howling, raining. I mean, it's crazy. So the poor holiday makers didn't have much of a fun time here, I'm sure. Well, I mean, they always find amazing stuff to do. So anyway, happy Easter, everybody. I hope you have had a wonderful break. And I am so happy to have with me on ARA, Aquarius Rising Africa today, the lovely Catherine Edwards. How are you, Catherine? Lovely to have you back.
I'm good. We've had a similar thing. We've had a few days of really lovely weather. And then yesterday it was raining all day, which we do say April showers. But the thing is nowadays, you know, if it's natural weather, and obviously for things to thrive in nature, we need rain, we need shine, we need all sorts of, different weather conditions. But the thing is now, we just don't know what's natural and what's not, and the pictures of I won't say the word because I don't want to get in trouble, but the zigzags in the sky. And that's the problem now is it's very difficult to have that natural appreciation, I think, for the natural weather cycles, because we don't know what's natural and what's not.
Absolutely. With all the harps and the darps and the...
God, not the type of harps we want. We want the angelic harps, not their type. Yeah.
Exactly. I want to tell you, times are so crazy right now. We are digging deep into a whole lot of stuff. We started recently, 2 weeks ago, I think it's been now. I think this will be the third week with Jessie doing deep dives into the military. And guys, the military is not just guys being trained in the army, right? Or your SEAL teams or whatever. Wow. But I know this from speaking to whistleblowers off the air as well. But anyway, Jessie's starting to reveal more and more about the military bases and the different spiritual realms they enter, how they do it, what happens there, the underground water bases. It's insane. So much stuff is starting to come to the fore now. It's actually amazing. Not always easy as per our topic today. And I know that many of us don't like to hear these things, I'm afraid. I don't either. And I'm pretty sure, Catherine, you don't either. But, we have to be a voice for the animals. We really, really do. There's so many atrocities committed right under our noses and to the most defenseless sentient beings ever, and we have to understand that their suffering also contributes to the suffering of the planet. The whole energy as a whole gets drawn down by that. We forget that. Right now, so many of us are focused on the child transportation, as we should be, right? But we can't imagine, we understand that everything in life is energy, right? So animals, too, are a huge force. Remember, they're sentient beings. So their trauma hugely exacerbates and contributes to the negative energy that currently holds us hostage on this planet. So when we are prepared to look at that and do our own bit to release that, because this is what I do believe we are here to do, is to take ownership, responsibility, look around ourselves. How are we contributing to what's going on? Because everyone's contributing to what's going on, whether we like it or not, So how can we lighten the load? What can we do to make better decisions for our sentient beings and stuff like that. So that's what I have to say about that matter so far. What do you have to say about that, Catherine?
I think this is such an important subject. So what we're going to be discussing today is some of the ways that animals are used by humans, and how so many of us humans don't understand the suffering that's inflicted on them. Now, some of them, like dogfighting, are really obvious, and other ones, some of the other industries that we're going to talk about, to some people might not be obvious. And for me, the purpose of wanting to talk about this today, and we're going to be doing some follow-up discussions if people find it useful. Hi, everyone in the chat, by the way, thanks for joining us. Because when we know better, we do better. So anyone that's watching Chantelle Morné's channel, that's watching my channel, etc., we're all on a journey of discovery to understand how we as individuals can contribute towards changing the world that we're living in, how we can basically shine the light so that we move forward rather than keeping ourselves trapped in these cycles of trauma. And so many of the decisions that us humans make, you know, I've heard so much talk over the last few years about humanity. And whereas, yes, that's important, to me, that's only one part of the jigsaw puzzle. And when we're talking about humanity, we're immediately separating ourselves from nature and from everything else on this wonderful planet. And when we talk about all creatures, great and small, we cannot separate the decisions each and every one of us make in our daily lives, as Shanti said, is contributing towards what we're seeing and what we're continuing to have happen in our reality. And when we open our eyes and start to ask different questions, then suddenly the choices make a lot more sense. So many people, I think, Shanti, are very, very confused. And please let us know in the chat what you think. But so many people are really, really confused, and they say, how do I know who to believe? How do I know what information to follow? Well, hopefully by the end of this discussion today, you'll be seeing that some of these decisions about how we treat our animal companions on this planet, hopefully there'll be some aha moments for people, so that moving forward, it's not about blame about what we've done in the past, because you know, we all do things through ignorance, but ignorance is no longer acceptable in my world, because when you're drawn to certain information, once that information comes into your awareness, then it becomes an active choice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think with so many things, Catherine, we've become so numbed up or numbed down, whichever way we want to look at it, to what goes on in the animal kingdom. You know, now one of the topics I am not popular, never popular discussing, of course, is slaughterhouses and eating meat. And again, I want to just state, because I often come under fire about this, and again this past week I've come under fire, and I want to just state this very clearly. It's people so often will defend why they're eating meat. Well, it's got protein and this and nothing. We'll have a myriad of reasons as to why it is. For a moment, I want to say, just let's take the meat out of it. Let's just take the meat out of it, right? And pretend whatever's on your plate is delicious, but it's not meat. Let's look at the animals. Right. Now, the animals are obviously farmed for this reason. So let's look at how many millions of animals a day are slaughtered on this planet. A day. Millions. It goes into millions. I mean, I was reading the stats a few months ago, and I don't remember them offhand. Now, I don't know if people have seen cows on their way to a slaughterhouse. You will often see them cry. Tears are running down their eyes. They know what's going on. They smell it. They understand it. They are sentient beings. They telepathically talk to each other, so to speak, all the time. So when we are contributing to a mass slaughter each and every day, at the dairy industry, how many billions of little calves get taken away from their mothers at birth? Have you heard them cry for each other just so she can now give us milk? Which, do we really need it? I mean, that's a topic on its own. My point is the energy that comes from these traumas contribute massively to the negativity that actually occurs on this planet. Everything is energy. Everything.
Yeah.
Energy can never be created or destroyed, only ever transferred or transformed. Ignorance is not bliss. You know, we've been ignorant for so long. We defend our rights to do this, that, the next thing, to whatever, hunt, chase, whatever it is, we defend our right to do. We as humans, and in the Bible it somewhere says that we are given dominion over the earth. In my opinion, that's a very, very bad word for that, because it kind of implies we are dominant. We get to dominate. I say no. We were given stewardship, which is a big difference, because when we're given stewardship, it's about us taking care of this beautiful planet and realizing we're co-creating with nature. When you look at a tree, you look at yourself, it's the same. We're just a more emotionally complex version of a tree, actually. So we really need to see these things and understand how we, in our ignorance, and I don't mean that as an insult to anyone, maybe naivety as well, are contributing to what happens. Because when we are mass slaughtering millions of animals every day, what is veal? Veal is a calf that's been slaughtered within 24 hours. What is lamb?
I mean,
exactly. All of these things. What, you know, and what we must never forget, and especially with factory farming, is that every hormone that cow has been injected with, every steroid, everything sits in the flesh. And when you eat that, you ingest that as well. You ingest the energy of the animal as well as what they've ingested. So we've got to be aware of these things, of the consequences of what we're doing when we blindly follow what these people are telling us to follow. We've got to be a lot more conscious, because energetically we are contributing very negatively when we are not looking at these things.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when we're talking about the meat argument, I mean, the person that I find who has the best facts, figures, you know, looking at both sides and eloquently expressing himself is Earthling Ed. Look up him on, if you haven't seen, on the YouTube channel. And the thing is, we are not the same creatures. Now, we've all discussed on this channel, I'm laughing because who knows what bits of our history are real. But let's just say that we evolved from cavemen. Let's just say we did. How we used to live when, and how some people still live now with their hunter-gatherer lives. I am not talking about criticizing that lifestyle at all. If someone is still living a hunter and gatherer lifestyle, they only survive when they live in balance with nature and only take what they need and do it in the most humane way possible. So I'm not talking about that type of hunter and gatherer. But basically, when we live in today's modern world, most people that are watching this have got choices about what we eat, and we've got choices to educate ourselves and tune in and see, let our bodies give us feedback in terms of whether we're healthy. So you can be a really unhealthy meat eater and you can be a really unhealthy vegan. This whole ridiculous argument that it's completely impossible to be a healthy vegan is just complete bullshit. I'm afraid it's complete bullshit. You can be a lazy vegan and you can be a lazy meat eater. And I'm not holding my hand up at all and pretending that I eat perfectly, because I do not. You know, I will snack on things that I know are not great for me, but they're easy and they're nice. But generally speaking, the older I get, the more and more of my time goes into growing my own food, preparing from scratch my own food, making conscious buying choices, because I'm lucky enough to be in a position when I can do that. Now, I do also have 2 dogs and 5 cats that need meat to survive. So that's a dilemma for me, because even if you get organic, grass pasture raised meat, they all end up at the same slaughterhouses. So
Absolutely.
that's the dilemma. So what do I do about that personally is I choose never, ever, say, for example, I never feed any of my animals lamb, because to kill a newborn baby lamb when they've had no choice in life, it to me is the ultimate sin. And how can I be talking about what's happening to the children on this planet and then doing that to other people's children? So I am not pretending here that these things are easy, but when you make conscious decisions and you learn more about it each and every day, then the complications go away. It shouldn't be complicated to know whether you're eating healthily or not. It's actually pretty common sense. Does this look like real food? Do you know where it's come from? How processed? If you don't understand what processed food is, well, can you make that food look like that in the kitchen? So if you take an apple off a tree, you can stew it, you can bake it, you can mash it, you can puree it, but you can see it's still an apple. If you take a brown lump of kibble, it's full of all the waste products and everything. You've no idea what's in there. So what I'm saying with this is I think it's about these decisions that we're making, and the food choices is something every single person watching this will be making choices about what they eat and what they feed their family, whether it's 4-legged, 2-legged, winged, etc. And those choices will have an impact in the type of world we're creating and what energetically we're putting out to the universe that we are saying is acceptable.
Exactly.
So we can
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and I love what you said when you said it's what you're putting out to the universe and what you are actually saying is acceptable. And through the choices we make and through the purchases we do, that's the message we're actually putting and broadcasting. You know, I mean, as you say, no one is perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. And I mean, I can definitely have a very bad snack day. And I love them as well. I'm very happy for those. You know what I'm saying? It's all about balance. And it's like really, in my opinion, the 80-20 kind of ratio. 80% good, 20% like not so good. You know, your body is very forgiving. And that's just on a health area, but more as well, you know, just in terms of how we as humans are treating the species, and especially those that are food. One thing that is so important, and as an animal communicator, it is so important to thank your food, especially if it is flesh, because we forget that that animal actually gave its life so that you may eat. Now, what happens, what I've also observed in the spirit realm, is that when you see animals generally don't mind being eaten. Most of them don't mind being eaten. They understand that's their role. But the problem comes in when we treat them as if they don't matter. Because when we treat them as if they don't matter, suddenly that changes the entire energy. And that's when energetically you're going to see you get a lot of stuck energies that don't go back into the light, but stay stuck on this realm. And then that creates a lot of, remember, life is spiritual first before it's physical. And that creates a lot of negative input into the physical realm. That's the way I'll put it. So we have to realize that every animal, its life is as important to it as your life is to you. Look at a mosquito. Look at a tick. Look at a flea. If you, excuse me, if you are chasing or trying to kill it, it's running from you. Why? Because it feels the danger. Everything wants to live, and respect that in each and every creature. And it's like, as you said, all creatures great and small. right? There is no difference. There is no one more important than the other. We've got to learn to respect that and understand that. And when we do, suddenly we start treating things more consciously, right? We start treating things differently. We start being more humane. I mean, for me as an animal communicator, it's like, how do I eat something I talk to? Every animal I speak to knows exactly how many kittens she's had, or puppies, or piglets, or ponies, or whatever. They know, right? And they have that sentience around that. So we can't assume that they don't know what's going on. And we have to open our eyes to see what is going on, because that is actually us growing, right? Us as a human species growing and taking the veils off in front of our eyes and realizing, wow, there's so much more than meets the eye.
Yeah, and I think Liz has put a big thing here about mindless eating, and you will never see that in nature. So in nature, you will never see a lion continually, you know, if he's with a herd of antelope, or she, you won't see them just mindlessly killing loads of them. They'll take what they need, eat it, digest it, and let the rest be. And this is the thing in terms of these things are so important, because they inform everything about you energetically and how everything else senses and picks up with you. And that includes us other humans, even if we're not necessarily conscious of it. So for me, it's really hard to take someone, you know, that's really fighting for human rights really seriously if they're not fighting for animal rights as well. You know, it's such a contradiction in terms. And I think, as Morné says, as long as we do have mass slaughtering houses, there will be war on the earth, because you cannot breed animals purely for our consumption without any respect for their life. When you look at how, even as recently as at the end of the Second World War, most of the food in the whole Western world was produced by small home or community farms. And they lived in balance. So they would raise animals and they would just take what they needed when they needed it. And they would be slaughtered in the family environment, a completely different mentality. Absolutely. And there was a lot of gratitude with it. And when we think that we think that we can treat any other species on this world, and then we moan about what we're seeing in our world, how can we moan about what the controllers are doing to us when we are doing these things with our daily decisions to others? So a lot of us, let's shift it a little bit into, say, let's look at Amazon. And a lot of people have said, look, we've got to stop supporting these big corporations, because we know that they're using dirty money. There's child labor. They treat their staff appallingly. Often the money is being used for very nefarious means, you know, whatever big company it might be. But again, our eating choices is something that we can take personal responsibility with. And up in the chat, I think Claudia had a really good question. You know, how do you not get judgmental and upset when family or friends around you go hunting and eat evenly? I've just had a really good conversation with someone about this morning. Everything in life is about how we conduct ourselves. So how do I do that? I do find it very upsetting. I've got loads of examples I could share now that I'm seeing in my local environment. And I do want to come on to some of the other industries like horse racing and things, the way we use animals as commodities. But yes, Claudia, for me personally, it is upsetting, but I can control what I do. And just like children do what their parents do, not what they say. You know, Bruce Lipton and people have proven with the biology belief in epigenetics that very few diseases are hereditary. Most lifestyle choices, most core beliefs are passed down from generation to generation. So when you change yourself, that ripple effect goes out far and wide. And as an holistic animal therapist and communicator, I meet people that I might have worked with them and their animal 15 years ago and thought I'd got nowhere. And then I might meet them 10, 15 years later, and they've got a completely different outlook. And those seeds have taken a long while to take sow with some people, and other people, they're very different. But once they do, you know, never underestimate the power of your own way of conducting yourself, living your life, your own way of being, because that's what's going to have absolutely the most impact on what we see in this humanity. You know, whether we believe we live in a holographic universe, the law of attraction, the law of vibration, everything is linked. All these spiritual lessons that we talk about, they're not just theories. You know, what we actually do, what we think, what we feel, what we put into practice. And that is an ongoing process. We're not perfect. None of us, everyone has got more to learn, and we can all just keep making improvements, not beating ourselves up for decisions we made in the past from a different place to where we are now. But what we can take responsible is the decisions we make from this second onwards.
Absolutely. I think, and it's so true what you're saying. You know, it's like, as long as we live in this place where we mindlessly consuming something and thinking it's okay, yet we these great religious fanatics, excusing all sorts of things all the time without using your God-given intuition, your compassion, your understanding, and opening the mind somewhat. We have to learn how to open our minds to understand things differently and, excuse me, not defend ourselves all the time just because my father, my mother, and 20 generations up said it was fine. You know, it's not fine. We're living in a place we've got to look and see, are we contributing to the suffering, or are we contributing to the upliftment, if you will? And I mean,
choice, you know, doing nothing is a choice, saying nothing is a choice.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like I make a decision that I won't buy anything from somewhere that doesn't accept cash anymore. That's a decision, a personal decision I make. And I've got a choice in most of my daily situations that I can do that, because luckily I could walk out of one shop and go into another one. But similarly, I've got a choice that I wouldn't ever eat in a restaurant that served foie gras or veal.
Absolutely.
Because by making a choice to sit there and support that business, I am saying energetically to the universe that is okay. Now, did I in the past, when I was a teenager, I didn't have a clue about those things. So I would have made different choices then. And I'm sure, you know, as I said, I've just had an interesting chat with someone this morning, and I've learned stuff from there that I hadn't thought about before. So I will go away and ponder on that, and I'm sure make different choices from there. But every decision we make about how we treat the other beings on this planet, and even by us saying that we live on this planet, we're removing the connection with it. You know, we are part and parcel of everything on this planet, and we make those conscious decisions that we make are going to have a ripple effect in terms of what manifests in our lives and what we see on a more global scale. And trust me, and you know, anyone who's got animals in their lives just knows in their heart this to be true. A mother sheep, when they have their lamb taken off them, has exactly the same feelings as a human that's had their child abducted or taken off them. And there is no difference to the scale of the trauma. It's just the difference that they do. And just because, you know, I heard this said, anyone who hasn't seen the interviews on my channel with Emily Castrotta, amazing animal empath, please go and watch them. She's incredible. But how often when we've got any animal in our life, do we actually have a conversation with them and give them a choice? Because a choice means they have to be allowed to say no. You know, so even And how often do you let your animal actually say no to you, or come back and have a different opinion? You know, a lot of us remember what that was like as a child, not feeling that we had the ability to have our voices heard, to have no's listened to, etc. And I'm not talking about a safety issue here. I'm not talking about if your dog's about to run across the road and get run over. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about, you know, if it's having a deep sleep and you've decided you're going to drag it around whilst you go off for a cycle on the bicycle, sort of thing. So Well, should we get on to the horse racing side of things and some of the other animal industries, Shanti? Because that's
Absolutely.
a huge one.
And I'd actually like to, whatever we don't continue. I mean, things like canned hunting here in South Africa is, excuse my language, fucking horrific. I actually, wow, if there's something that gets my goat, it's that. And of course, the lion breeding, I mean, it's just on another level. And then their bones get crushed. They get slaughtered. Their bones get crushed to send to the Eastern Asian countries for erections. Men with little penis syndrome. Anyway, story for another day. Animal testing. I mean, we're looking at our animal laboratories. I mean, things like dog racing. I mean, I saw a video the other day. Some freak is doing corgi racing. Who even thinks that? Why? Why? I mean, I'm not saying they're cruel necessarily, but no, come on. It's just dominance. It is cruel. It's cruel. And maybe they're not beating them up, but the way that the greyhound racing, I mean, when we look at the dark side of greyhound racing, which is obviously the most popular of the dog racing as far as I know, I mean, as you said, we don't even mention the pit bull rings and stuff like that. That's just on another level. I worked with the SPCAs and I have seen things from there that, wow, crazy.
So anyway, the horse racing and the dog racing, I think, is a really important one because the horse racing. So as a therapist that's worked holistically with animals for 25 years, I used to work a lot with not just race horses. So there's race horses, dressage horses, show jumpers, polo ponies, barrel racing, you name it. Now, a horse in the wild, first and foremost, any horse racing, it is so barbaric if anyone chooses to look into it on so many different levels. First and foremost, the way that they're bred to race. So it's like saying, well, if you stopped horse racing, all the horses that have been bred to race would have to be put down. That's like, it's just not a non-starter for that. But to ride, most of these horses are started at 2 years old when their bones and their structural system is no way capable of dealing with that sort of speed, and certainly not with someone on their back. So the amount of horses that break their legs, have legs shatter when they're running. Do you know, in the USA, an average of 200 horses per week, I think it is, are killed on the racetracks. Now, these figures go up and down depending what year you're looking at. But imagine if we were watching our athletics and, out of every race, virtually one sprinter died by shattering their race or having a heart attack. Well, they are now, but that's
hang on. 200 horses per week die on the racetrack in the States alone. Is that the stat?
That was the figures I found, I think, for 2019. Is absolutely horrific. And this can be where they've actually had a bone shatter or heart attack, which is very, very common, or where there's been a catastrophic industry where they've chosen to euthanize them. It is horrendous. But also most ex-race horses end up in the slaughter meat industry, even really famous ones. So Ferdinand, who won the Kentucky Derby in 1986, got sold to Japan and then was killed in a Japanese slaughterhouse in 2002. These horses that give that I have worked for years at race stables. Now, I am not saying they are not good ones. I'm not saying there are not people in the industry who do the best they can with what they've got given, because something like racing greyhounds, racing horses, it's a very complicated chain of custody, because you have the owners that normally, in most cases, are rich people that have very little to do with their day-to-day care and just have the objective of winning as much as possible. And then you have the trainers and the yard managers and vets. So there's loads and loads of different levels of custody that these animals are put under. So, and there are some that are way better on the welfare than others. But the fact of the matter is a horse in the wild, because the common thing that everyone says to me, they wouldn't run if they didn't want to. No one's forcing them. Well, they are, because they're prey animals. So when a prey animal scents danger, it runs for its life. So a horse in the wild will never gallop for long distances unless they're running for their life, ever. So you will see horses play in the wild, and they'll do short, sharp bursts of energy, just like a dog will. And we'll come on to the greyhounds in a minute. So a horse will play very energetically with other members of the herd, but it's short, sharp bursts of energy. If you see any horses, they only run for long distances in straight line to get away from danger. Ever. So when one prey animal sets off a run, the others have to follow. It's everything in their everything in their survival and their genetics is saying, I've got to run, because whoever's at the back is the one that's going to basically get eaten. So it's nothing to do with pleasure for them. It's purely a fear response, and different animals have different fear responses. So when people are dressing up in their posh, you know, they call horse racing the sport of kings. When they're dressing up and going and enjoying this and betting on it, most people have no idea the level of suffering that goes into those horses during their training, during their keep, how stressful the actual event is. You know, I stopped working with them because all the trainers want you to do is, how do I stop my horse's lungs bleeding? So they're putting them under so much pressure that some of them have heart attacks, and a lot of them are called what's called bleeders, where they're running so unnaturally far for so fast that their lungs are bleeding. And then all they want us and the vets to do is stop them bleeding. You stop them bleeding by stop the stress of making them run like that they're not designed and able and capable to do at that age anyway. So the train of custody, there's so much you can look up on this, you know, people that are interested. But how can you make a difference? You can make a difference by informing yourself, never going to a dog or race meeting, never supporting that. And if you've got monies, looking into how you can support these at their end of life, because most greyhounds and most racehorses end up being slaughtered and in the meat industry. And that is a fact.
It is a fact. And I know that from working with rehabilitated predators, the big cats. Obviously they've got to get their meat from somewhere, and that generally comes from the slaughterhouse industry, which is ex-race horses, which are now no longer of breeding of racing, or something has happened. I mean, I've seen disgusting photographs of a guy actually in broad daylight. He was so pissed off with his horse that it didn't win. He stands here with a gun and he shot this horse in broad daylight in front of everyone. I mean, you see these horses stabled and they're next to each other. And as a communicator, I know this, and then I would verify it with the owners or the stable hand or whatever. They literally shoot horses in the stables while the others are right there next to them. It is so traumatic for the other horses, because they are highly, highly sentient. They're very, very sociable. They're friends with each other. They are highly, highly sentient.
And they're trapped, so they can't escape the danger. So it's like you literally being in one room and your best friend being shot next to you, and you're
murdered next to you, and you can't get out.
And you don't know if you're next. Polo, again, the level of pain that these animals are in. As someone said a very good point, you know, horses don't scream. You know, very, very rarely will you ever hear a prey animal scream. You will do at the end of their life often, but that's when they do. And if they did scream more like a predator, so most predators will scream. So, you know, your dog will yelp if it hurts itself, will scream, etc. But most prey animals don't, because it's the final step, because their whole survival mechanism is not being the one that stands out. So any form of weakness that they show makes them vulnerable to predators. So they're not going to scream out. They'll run when they're in pain. They'll do everything they can not to show a predator they're in pain, because as soon as the predator picks up that you're the one that's in pain, you're the weak link, and they're the one that they're going to lock on and take. So yeah, there's so many things, but the reason I'm talking about this today is because knowledge really helps us make better decisions. And when we can actually sort of understand, so I've got lots of friends that go horse racing. So what do? I decline the information and I explain clearly why I'm declining the information. And then when I get laughed at and I get told that don't be silly, they enjoy it, otherwise they wouldn't run, I explain to them about how they're prey animals and how they behave. And I can't be responsible for other people's decisions. But what I can do is try and spread the message so that more people understand, because every single person that steps away and says, actually, no, I can't, now I know this, I can no longer support this as a fun day out. Every single person that does that makes a difference. Just like what we're saying, all of these things, Chantelle, don't you think they're so representative of what's going on a global scale with everything? It's all about saying no to things that are against the natural laws of nature and the natural laws of love and respect and living in harmony with all creatures, great and small.
I absolutely love that you said that. It's saying no to everything that goes against the natural essence of nature. And we as human beings, it's in our nature to go against nature.
Yeah.
But I think we've done enough of that now when we look at the destruction that we've also all contributed to. Again, it's not a blame. It's really just an acknowledgement and a taking responsibility for. Because again, we can't take responsibility for something that we're completely unaware of, you know. If you don't know that your steak every night comes from a live animal and you think it's been processed for you, how would you know? Unless you start asking questions, unless you start realizing what's in our food, where does my food come from? How did it live? You know, I want to just go back to that. And I mean, a number of years ago, I researched slaughterhouses. 4 CDs of photographs. I had 4 CDs, guys. That's a lot of pictures. That in those days, before the days of whatever we have now, we just had CDs of someone secretly taking pictures. People, what they sometimes do to those animals in those places before it ends up on your plate is, I can't even say the words.
No, don't.
No. It's just, and then you look at the people, and let's also say this, and again, I'm not talking about this from a judgmental position. I'm saying let's understand that people who are working in these slaughterhouses, killing thousands of sentient beings every day, have certainly lost a part of their soul, a big part of their soul. So they are numb, they're unfeeling, they clearly like that dominating, mass murdering feeling that I have seen. I'm not saying everyone that works there is like that, but I have seen the evidence of that in front of my eyes, to see what these people are doing to animals before they get slaughtered. The torture, the mockery, the way, no. The way, and even afterwards, what they're doing with them after they're dead. No. We have to understand that if slaughterhouses had glass walls, 95% of this planet would be vegan, or at least vegetarian.
Yeah.
Because if we saw what was going on behind those walls, and that's why I say the energy, it's demonic. Now we're talking about energies and different vibrations. That is a mass blood sacrifice every single day.
And how much people waste as well, Chantelle. I mean, the amount of people that people waste. I'm not going to pick just on the Americans, but that it's very well known. You know, if I go to America, the portion sizes are just ludicrous. I mean, you couldn't eat it if you tried. And the fact that something has given its life and then it's wasted is just absolutely horrific. And I've listened so much, and I'm constantly on this journey myself. I'm not pretending I've got any of the answers here in terms of, okay, how do we strike that balance between understanding what is going on in the world so that we know how to make better decisions moving forward? And it's always a sort of fine line, isn't it? This is the thing. It's like getting right back to basics. When we talk about, it's well known that one of the best cures for stress, for depression, for anxiety is getting out in nature. When people are disconnected from nature, they are disconnected from themselves.
And
you
their food.
Cannot make good decisions for yourself when you're in that state. You can't make good physical decisions for yourself. You can't make good emotional, mental decisions for yourself. And therefore, that's going to reflect on every other being that you interact with of whatever species. So getting back to some more of these simple ways of living are so rewarding. How many times do we see that the happiest people we know are the ones that live the most simply?
Absolutely. Let's look at the cosmetic industry and the amount of animal testing that goes on in the name of your waterproof mascara. It is astounding. Rabbits, innocent rabbits, you want to see what they do. Their eyes get pulled like that, and these drops get put in there. They are big burning blisters. Monkeys, chimpanzees, all in, and I mean, do you know that they had, what are these little dogs with the floppy ears? Oh man.
Beagles.
That's the one. Is it the beagle?
Yeah.
They had beagles tested, like strapped in and doing whatever they're doing. And they were testing smoking on their lungs, people. They had cigarette smoke pumping through to see how much these dogs' lungs could take. This is what they're doing to our innocent animals. When we're looking at, just as I said, the cosmetic industry, and all your big names are testing, and they'll say, no, we don't test. Well, I'm saying, well, you might not test, but where does your raw materials come from? Exactly. And do they test? We get ours from China. I'm going, really? So we have to, again, in this way, we have to make more conscious choices for ourselves. When we see how our ignorant vanity, and I'm sorry, that's what it is. And I'm not saying don't like, you can see I like to wear makeup and do whatever. But I promise you, when it comes to buying a product that is animal tested and you're not going to find me having animal tested products in my house.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm not saying I do everything perfectly, but when you again start looking at the animal testing, cosmetic animal testing, I think we need to start by researching these things. We've got to start. Let's look at for people to start getting an idea is to actually start looking and researching the effect of animal testing and the amount of animal testing that goes on in the cosmetic industry, the dark side of horse racing, the dark side of the meat industry, the dark side of the dairy industry. We can't, and then slowly but surely read articles. Most people avoid that. You will see on any social media post, you post stuff like that, it's the least liked post.
And you get a lot of abuse for doing it as well. Can I just shout out Hillary in the chat? Thank you, because the people who are joining us in the chat today, Shanti, are sharing some really good information. And Hillary's talking about the Nutrition Detective channel and saying about, what's in some of our supplements as well. This is exactly what I love, because all of us can get a little bit of the jigsaw puzzle together. There's no one here that's got time to research all of this themselves. I certainly haven't. But this is why it's so wonderful. This to me is the true meaning of community, and probably why Shanti and I, a large part of why we've got our channels, is because if we all share what we know, if we all do our little bit and research, take something each and research something, then we share that knowledge between us and we learn and trust from each other. This is how we, for me, we make the world a better place. This is how we really change the reality for all of us, for everything on and in this planet. And I love it when people, you know, I'll be looking that up. I'll be looking up the Nutrition Detective channel and seeing what I can learn from there, because we're all learning from each other and we're all, you know, sharing that knowledge.
Sorry, I want to just see if there's a link, the Nutrition Detective. You can give us a link. Is that Hillary?
Hillary,
Hillary, if you can give us a link, that'll be good. If you can have it. You know, if you can maybe just pop it in the comment section, that'd be great. We can start.
Yeah,
we can start checking that out. But it's really, guys, you know we've been lied to. We know we've been lied to, and you know we realize that in order to get back to the best versions of who we are meant to be on every level, you know, we've got to get back to basics. We've got to get back to nature. We've got to get back to family. We've got to get back to ourselves. We've got to get back to simplicity. This world has become such a plastic, narcissistic world that we've all contributed to. We've all had TV dinners. We all like fast foods. I mean, why do these places, why are there so many? And why do they all do so well? Right? It's like we ourselves have disconnected from the cooking, the nurturing. Think about cooking. It's nurturing, right? So where have we gone so far away from ourselves that we don't like to nurture? Because even for myself, just cooking for myself, it's nurturing me. And again, do I do this right? Hell no. Hell no. But what I have decided to do is that even if I don't cook that day, and if I have fruit or something, I'll cut it up. I'll make a little ritual out of it, you know, where I can say, wow, I'm really enjoying this. Doesn't mean I'm not going to take an apple on the run. I'm going to. But if it comes to having a meal or something, sitting down, even if I have 15 minutes, sitting down, making it nice for myself. You see, we've got to learn to get back to enjoying doing these things for ourselves again. Nurturing. Such an important element that we've lost. And especially as women, right? Because we are the born nurturers. And many of us are not able to nurture at the moment because of the lifestyles that we live. On the rush most of the time. And kids being looked after by au pairs and nannies and what have you. And it's a crazy time. We've got to get back to this and thinking, feeling, reconnecting with nature, reconnecting with animals, you know, and that's why I say, you know, when like the one workshop I run is the conscious communication, where we connect with the animals, nature, everything. It's like really just rooting in. It's so important to be able to do that.
It's so rewarding. I mean, I've been just learned. Now, this sounds silly to most people listening probably, but I've just learned how to sprout my own seeds. It's so easy. It's so wonderful. They're so delicious, not just for me, but for all the animals as well. It's so cheap, and you can buy these in bulk, share them with your neighbors if you need to buy a sack together and share them. But these things, these great little skills. I'm making my first sourdough loaf.
Are you talking about the, what are they called? The seeds you buy? Sprouts.
Yeah, it's so easy to do and it's so enjoyable. So anyone that's got children, even my husband can do it. So what I would say is, as I would say, these things, reconnecting with the joy of those simple things in life is so, so wonderful. And the love that you sort of put into it. So, look at I've got a lot of tips I'm sharing on Instagram now as I'm reconnecting in with these side of things. And it's literally transforming me and everyone else. I'm having such fun. Really great way to serve money. Really great way to go out and start learning how to forage with a lot of the time for yourself, for your animals, etc. But when you start doing those things, you'll find the snowball effect. Like you were saying, Shanti, it just every decision gets easier. You don't need to get so worried in your head about what do I know, what to think about this, what do I know. When you reconnect with your food, when you reconnect with the soil, I'm doing a gardening course at the moment with Zach Bush, bloody brilliant. When you get back to these real basics that all our grandparents knew how to do anyway, then so many of our modern stresses do disappear. I absolutely promise you, because you know what's right and what's wrong. You see the bullshit, you feel it, you make better decisions for yourself, etc.
Absolutely. And, even if you do apartment living, which I know a lot of people do, or don't necessarily have big gardens or areas outside, in your kitchen window, you can grow little herbs. You can do your sprouting. I know that I love sprouting. I actually, before I went traveling, I used to do all my own. I love them. In salads, they're the best. And, it's really, and then it's just a different feeling to have that, right? To actually create your own food. And even if you're growing your own parsley or your own basil.
Oh, I love it.
Even if that's all that you're doing, it's a sense of achievement. It might just instigate you to do more. I mean, if I know there is a space problem. I know that with a lot of things, but there are beautiful little jars and things, and you can make yourself just start doing that.
Ornaments to have in your house, the plants. I mean,
Yes.
if you see my office at the back there, I've got trays and trays of parsley and basil and coriander that I'm growing. It's been a bit cold, so I bring them in here at night because my guinea pigs and rabbits and dogs eat more than I do. But this is what I mean. So when we cover these heavy subjects, it's about, okay, I've realized there's something now. I'm going to make different choices. This is what works for me. How can I share it? How can I learn from other people? Like my neighbor gave me a sourdough starter and just basically explained, and then I looked up the rest of it, and it's going to be in the oven as soon as I get off this. It's just, when we make these different decisions, these little things, they may seem trivial, but they really do change our whole world. And when we get back to the animals, yes, at the moment, I do need to feed my cats and dogs meat. So I try and put as much thought and attention and speak to where I'm getting it from as possible. But I'm constantly looking and learning from other people as well. And,
Absolutely.
At least I can contribute by not making the problem worse by choosing to eat it myself.
Absolutely. And, I think, but when we do have animals, and I love what you're saying as well, because I do the same. I know like in South Africa, we have biltong, dried meat, and they love biltong as treats. So I will give them their biltong treats, stuff like that. But it's, as you say, it's also, and I love, whenever I go into the meat sections, which is not very often, but I have to say, I really stand and I feel the energy. I do. I make sure I do. And I just myself thank the animals, Yeah. It's amazing when you start being that connected. Some of them are happy to go, others not, and at least they feel my connection, which makes me feel better as well, So it really is. These are amazing times, and so much is available to us. Everything is actually available, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, mental, physical, there's so much available on this planet right now. We really don't have any excuses anymore. And as who was it saying, Liz Dennett, YouTube is a wealth of information for indoor gardening.
Yes.
So there's so many, we have the internet, we have so much stuff available. And gosh, how brilliant are these youngsters nowadays, right? I mean, some of them are off like on another planet. I'm not talking about the complete cuckoos, but I'm talking about these youngsters on YouTube, the way that they're such techno whizzes. They've got so much information. I'm like grandma sitting here trying to like figure out how to do that. I'm like looking at these youngsters and I'm like, I must learn from some of them. But it's amazing because it just highlights, how many people are doing different things and everything is available for us. It really is a choice. It's a choice whether we actually act on it or not. And what I'm finding, because so many people have become so disconnected over the years with TV, computers, stuff like that, people are a lot more lazy. And please, I'm not saying anyone is lazy. I'm talking about human beings in general have become a lot more lazy. The remote on the TV, the remote on the kettle, the remote on your flippin' curtains nowadays, remote on your car. You get to sit on your ass and technology does everything for you except cook you a decent meal. Oh, but now I can go to McDonald's for that. Why not? And I get extra 3, so it feeds my family. It's just, we have to take responsibility. That's all I'm saying.
And we can't blame if people are pushing AI agendas and 15-minute cities and smart cities. If that's the type of lifestyle we're living anyway, we're actively encouraging it. It's literally like lambs to the slaughter, So I think this is where, and it doesn't matter if we've made those decisions in the past. It doesn't matter. I look back at some of the decisions I'm making in the past. I think, what planet was I on? It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what decision we make from now.
Absolutely. It's going forward. We can reflect on the past and realize, okay, that's where I'm not happy with myself, but we must not get stuck in there. We've got to also realize we've got to forgive ourselves and realize at the time, if I didn't want to think about some of the things I was doing when I was 23. Well, they were fun, but you know what I mean? Total ignorance in many instances. But we have so much knowledge. If you are contributing to an industry that is harming something or someone, and yes, there is always, when we burning wood, it means we've chopped a tree, but it's like, yes, how do we give back? Of course, Earth is providing us with amazing wood and water and air and all sorts of things for us to live. We as human beings are absolutely dependent on Earth to supply for us. So let's just give back. How do we give back? By having, I think, less of a carbon footprint, being conscious of what we're eating. Don't litter. Stop throwing your masks in the sea. Burn that disgusting thing. Instead of throwing it in the dustbin. Okay, now not so many people are wearing masks anymore, but the poor sea creatures were suffocating under everyone's masks. Instead of burning your mask, instead of throwing it away, why didn't you just burn the thing? So now...
Well, just don't buy one in the first place.
Exactly. I was like, no, come on. But anyway, again, judgment, yes, I get that. I'm like, whoa. But that's what I'm saying. Let's think about these things. Let's not have the wool pull over our eyes anymore the next time they try and lock us down for some other crap. Let's be wiser. Let's learn from our mistakes. As humanity, let's move forward as a unified force where we all realize, okay, the conspiracy theorists weren't so crazy after all. Let's research a little bit more. Let's go into the dark side of horse racing, dog racing. Watch documentaries on pit bull fighting. It is disgusting because we have to see that it's so gross that no one wants to look at it. And while we don't want to look at it, these animals are suffering horrifically as much as what children being trafficked are. Yeah. So let's please just be conscious. That's all. Let's just be conscious and kind. Be kind, be conscious.
And have an amazing time, Hilary, on your 12-day walk in Tuscany. How absolutely stunning will that be? Oh, that'd be amazing. So, so let us know what works for you guys as well. And I think sharing this information is absolutely crucial so that we can all help each other make better choices.
Absolutely. And I would love to have you back again talking about other things. We really do. You know, there's things like, I mean, when I was in Thailand, living in Thailand, I mean, someone mentioned the rooster fighting. I never saw it happen. But I went once because I got to know the local community quite well. And one of the girls invited me to a house for tea. And right there were these roosters in these, they have these like mesh, like a half dome thing where they just stick it on top of the rooster, and they have like 6 or 7 within a meter or 2 apart from each other, and these things all pecked. They've got no feathers. And they are so angry with each other. They just want to kill each other, and they're in such bad condition. And wow, my heart just broke. So I've never seen it happen, but I know it happens. And there's a lot of dog fighting there as well, a lot of cruelty, you know. I mean, when you just look at the restaurants in Thailand, you walk outside, they've got these different bars with these crabs, with their live crab, seafood, pinchers tied up, waiting to be chosen and cooked alive. You know, I understand different cultures have different ways of doing things, but we can't be ignorant. And it starts with us. If you're the one that realizes this does not feel good, no matter how tasty it might be for me.
Exactly. It's never an excuse. You know, that's no different to a paedophile saying that, oh, it feels good to me. It's not an excuse. Nothing. Pleasure is not an excuse for abuse ever. So I've got to rush now because I've got. But thank you so much. Thank you everyone who joined us as well. We appreciate you all.
It has been amazing to have you back again, Catherine. We will have you back in a couple of weeks again. And is there anything else you'd like to say just before ending off and saying goodbye? I see Morné has disappeared and now it looks to me
thanks everyone for joining us, and I'm sure we'll be back for another discussion on something equally scintillating in a few weeks' time. Thanks.
Indeed.
Bye.
God bless you. Bye. Like, share, subscribe, guys. This information is important. Thank you so much. Cheers.